Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always delighted to have this widely followed returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. He joins us for this live weekly market update. Today is Thursday, May 1st, 2025. Andy, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Good to see you, Dunn. Again, it was quite a day today, huh?
It's been very interesting in the markets recently. There's been a lot of whipsaw action, not only in the stocks, but also in the metals and the bonds. And we'd love to get your view of that from inside the belly of the beast and seeing both the wholesale and retail and forward-looking demand, et cetera, of the bullion market. Can you give us your view of this? Because a lot of our viewers and subscribers would like to get that, and that's one of the things that you bring to this party.
Yeah, I mean, I on days like today, I think you have to put things in proper perspective. I mean, to me, the most basic, simple way of describing is that central banks aren't going to go back to buying treasuries and selling gold. I think that from here on out, you're going to see more turbulence, more volatility, sharper swings, but nothing's really changed. In fact, I just think you have to not get shaken out. The bull wants to take as few people along for the ride as possible, and you have to keep your perspective. They try and tell us that this was the Chinese dumping like 1 million ounces of gold. Let's just put that in perspective. So, first of all, when we talk about Chinese gold-backed ETFs, in the month of April, they saw more inflows than all of 2024. And that's just in the first 11 days of the month. And when we talk about China dumping gold, first of all, their markets are closed right now until May 5th, which is very peculiar. In fact, this lends itself to making you think of conspiracy and of manipulation and of suppression during Chinese trading hours when their markets are closed. That's a clever trick. To me, that's very suspicious to say the least. And Goldman Sachs's story is very suspicious. And I think the bullion banks were able to exploit the closures in the Chinese markets to smash the price. If you look at a chart, a continuous 24-hour chart, you see it go up every time it hits Chinese trading, it goes up and gets smashed as it comes into New York. Well, with all of the Chinese markets being closed until May 5th, suspicious. Goldman talked about a 31-ton dump, but they didn't make any delineation between the Shanghai Gold Exchange and the Shanghai Futures Exchange. So I did a little digging. The Shanghai Gold Exchange delivers less than 4 tons a day, right? And so, in essence, the majority, if not all, of this dumping was done in the futures market. And so I think that that's important here. You're not seeing physical gold being sold off. You're seeing futures being sold, and it's done for effect for sure. Let's talk about what's happening here in the United States. We saw for the May contract in gold, 9,306 contracts stand for delivery. That's the second highest ever for a non-active delivery month. The silver May contract, 14,813 contracts stood for delivery. That's the second highest ever, just behind March's record delivery. And we're beginning to see these short positions that are closing their positions, and you knock it down, and yeah, a good way to close it. But it seems everything's settling for physical delivery. The other side of the short, the long says, great, we'll stand for delivery, please. Who are those longs? We don't really know. But to me, this just exemplifies continued demand at the highest level. So I think people need to put things into perspective. It's been quite a run in gold. Silver hasn't even begun to blow out from its technical formation. I suspect it will, and probably much more so than what we witnessed in gold. But yeah, I would just simply say that it's going to be bumpy, but nothing has changed, not even a little bit. And with the Fed meetings and all the things that are happening, I think perception this was a perfect opportunity for, if I had to guess, the Western bullion banks to knock the hell out of the price, say it's the Chinese, even though their markets are closed, and do what they can to close out their short positions or to settle things with metal that they're able to then physically buy on the cheap. So this doesn't bother me at all. Nothing goes straight up. It's certainly violent, but also put it in perspective. A 60 or $70 drop is 2%. So it's not a massive drop. The dollar numbers are higher than most us gold bugs really think about because it hasn't been at these levels for very long. And when you're at 3,000 plus gold, a $300 move, well, it's still 10%, but it's a big one. But when you see 60 or $90 move, which really freaks people out, you're talking under 3%. So um, yeah, you're going to see paper market volatility. That's just the bottom line. You're going to see that the higher the price goes. But I still think gold and silver will climb the wall of worry that everyone is freaking out about on social media right now.
We have some questions that have been submitted by viewers who are watching us live right now. And folks, if you want to ask a question live of Andy Schectman, make sure you're in the live chat. So you've got to be on YouTube, you got to be subscribed to Liberty and Finance, and then you'll be able to get into the live chat. Just post your question as a comment in the live chat. I'm trying to scan those as we go. Fazdal, who's a regular here, says, or is the reduction in gold price because Trump and Zelensky signed a minerals deal, which could be the beginning of negotiating the end of the Ukraine war? Is it time to go risk off again?
I mean, all of these things to me are peripheral noise. No, it's not. That doesn't change the structural problems that we have with the monetary system, with our indebtedness, with everything. But and we should hope for peace, certainly. But no, I don't think that changes anything at all. In fact, you could argue that when the war is over, you may see a larger, more concerted effort by the BRICS nations to focus on unity, to focus on trade. We talked about last week. 40 plus countries have applied for the BRICS, Vietnam being the last, and their new payment system, which is now open to non-member nations. They haven't slowed down behind the scenes. They're just not as open about it anymore. And the Russian finance minister is all over the place, Lavrov, talking about this. And so peace is good, but it should not have anything really material to do, in my mind, with the price of gold. Really, it shouldn't. I don't, even if it ended today, I don't see how it materially impacts the United States, the dollar, or any of the problems that are fiscally or monetarily in front of us.
We have a comment here, not a question, but I think you might want to tag on to it from Nitro Burp, who says Fibonacci retracement is normal and healthy. We certainly talked with Gregor Manarino, the founder of TradersChoice.net, who's a trading coach. He always reminds us that nothing goes up in a straight line forever, and it's healthy in bull markets to see uh, filling in and consolidating because that prepares you to move upward again and shakes out, as you said, the bull is always trying to shake out those who are just in it for a flip or whatever. But any comments from you on the concept that some retracement to Fibonacci levels is normal and healthy in a bull market?
100%. Richard Russell, I'll make it easy because the Fibonacci numbers I don't know off the top of my head, but yes, that is true. Richard Russell always used to say at least a 50% retracement. When you see things move up that high, a 50% retracement is normal. And it is normal and healthy, with somewhat of a gold squeeze. It moved a little too fast. It was exciting. And, we were all thrilled by it and expected it to go straight up forever, but it won't be that easy, not even a little bit. But take a step back again, and you got Treasury Secretary Bessent saying that the bond markets are signaling it's time for the Fed to cut rates. Well, they want to go back to, more easy money and perhaps even quantitative easing. Again, this is very gold friendly. Powell didn't say flat out that he's going to abandon his dual mandate, but he hinted at it. In other words, they're caught and they know it. We're caught between the ability to fight inflation and to keep rates low enough to stimulate the economy. You're seeing mass layoffs. You're seeing a slowdown in the economy. Um, and so I think, what do you do? I think Trump wants lower rates. He wants a lower dollar, as we've seen. And now you have the Treasury talking about coming in and buying their debt as well, finding ways to buy older maturity debt. Again, this is all monetization. Right now, the we saw the negative print on the GDP, right? And so the 2-year Treasury yield is 3.56 right now, but the federal funds overnight rate is 4.33. This is more of what we saw before. This is classic yield curve inversion. This screams of a recession coming. And so, with inflation fears elevated already, um, May 7th is the next Fed meeting. A lot of this is done by design for optics with the Fed meetings coming up, and everything is okay, don't worry. But they want to lower rates. They want to lower rates not only on the front end of the curve, but even the 10-year, and stimulate. You're going to see a reignition of inflation. This is all very gold friendly. So, um, I think there are some big players that are caught in the futures market that would love nothing more than to extricate themselves from these positions. So seeing the metals market get knocked down like that and see all of these contracts closing out is not surprising to me. What is surprising is people's reaction, thinking that, well, maybe we should go from risk off to risk on. Absolutely not. I think that this is why emotions very often get the best of us, and it's natural. I get it. It is emotional, but you got to take a step back and ask yourself, what if anything has changed? We're not saving any money on our indebtedness. In fact, we're going deeper and deeper into debt, even with Doge. So the indebtedness is still a problem. The fragility of the economy is still a problem. The geopolitical issues are still a problem. Nothing's changed. But what has changed is there's greater volatility in the market.
Yeah, I'm going to share real briefly a screen. So this is the from goldprice.org. Guys, if you don't already frequent that site, it's got some pretty interesting charts. This is the 3-day chart on gold. The most recent day that just closed, a few hours ago is in red. So you see that big drop from just over 3,300 down to below 3,220 or so. And then you see that in the after hours, the New York Globex market, there's a rebound back up into the about 3240 right now. But if you go from a 3-day view into a 7-day view, you still see that dip recently, and people, say, what's going on? You go to a 30-day view, you can hardly even see
Well,
it again.
that's the point.
And you go to a
I'm
60-day
glad
view.
you
I'm going to
did
keep
that.
going. Watch this. Here's a 60-day view. Here's what we've gotten used to so easily. Here's a 6-month view. What have you done for me lately? Everybody's sweating this last little blip here. And here's a 1-year view. Again, you keep seeing what we're seeing here is the 2-year view. So the farther out you go, the more and more it becomes clear that um,
Well, that's the point. I mean, that you look at that chart, there's nothing emotional about it. You look at it on a daily or an hourly or yeah, I mean, I get it, but no, nothing has changed. And the big money that's doing this, that's trying, I think, to reintegrate gold, to reaccumulate gold. I mean, before the big Basel III deal here in July, where all the contracts need to be backed by physical metal, all of this stuff, they don't want it to be too easy because when it's too easy, it gets too much attention. When it gets too much attention, there's too much competition. And when it's too much competition, they don't get to do what they want to do. And that's get in line before the rest of us. You just need to take a step back and realize that, not everything you read on the internet is true, and at least some of it might be factual. But I have a very hard time believing that the Chinese sold 1 million ounces of gold. I really do. I think that reeks of. I mean, and why do it when the markets are closed in China? You would think that's not how it would operate. So. Yeah, but to see it pull back up here in after hours is promising. But yeah, you could see volatility, and it's ironic that till Cinco de Mayo, to May 5th is when they're on holiday, and you got the Fed meetings on May 7th. Do not expect anything spectacular, maybe until after the Fed meetings. Could be greater volatility anyway between now and then.
Right? We have a comment here from Barton Winchester who says, we are just establishing a new gold bottom. How long were we all watching and waiting for gold to break through 2000? And then how long were we all watching and waiting for gold to break through 3000? And now the fact that it, got nearly to or got to 3500 and has a pullback to 3300 and change. He says, is this just establishing a new bottom, new support level?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think 30, right in the 3200-ish range, 3200 would be that support level. And you could see it test 3150. You could see it go all the way back to the 3000 level and test it. But to me, nothing has changed. That's why, what I mean by the bull wants to take as few people along for the ride as possible. You have major big banks that need to close out these positions, big funds that need to close out these positions. And this will not go straight up without it being, I think, a very bumpy road. I really do believe that. And the greater the volatility, typically it precedes some sort of a major move higher. So this to me is all par for the course. But nothing's changed. I mean, truly, I believe nothing has changed. I think we'll all know when something has changed. To me, nothing at all has changed, not even a little bit.
Got a question here from Joshua Ellis pointing out silver is consumed, but gold is not. With supply and demand laws, how can silver not at some point become more valuable than gold, as Bixweir suggests?
In some respects, it already is. It just hasn't, the monetary aspect of gold is what has been agreed upon by, you know, by by the central banks. But from a strategic standpoint, you could argue silver is just as valuable, and maybe that's why you see these eight Western banks that have gone to such great lengths to suppress the paper price. But then again, you're seeing massive deliveries as well on COMEX. And when you see the open interest just fall by 10% yesterday, that signals that typically, to me, that signals that these contracts are getting closed out and are preparing to stand for delivery. So when there is a short, the long on the other side has the ability to stand for delivery. And when you see on the first day like that, it just massive drop in open interest. That to me are contracts that will stand for delivery. And again, we saw a huge delivery. What did I say on that number? Huge delivery that we just saw. What was the number here? Um, 14,813 contracts. It's the second highest ever. And if we multiply that times 5,000, well, that's 7 million 400 and no, is that 74 million? 74 million ounces of silver. 74 million, one, two, three, one, two, yeah, 74 million, 65,000 ounces of silver stood for delivery just like that. And I think you're going to start to see silver leave the COMEX exchanges as well. And that's when you'll realize that this is getting really serious. But, you know, this is a trend that hasn't stopped. We've seen more imports of gold into this country and to a lesser degree silver than at any time since the end of World War II, when everyone sent us their gold because of the Bretton Woods deal. So it's not just gold, it's also silver. And I think the people at the highest levels understand silver. There's a race to secure it, and I think they understand that it is strategic. It's not tier one, so it doesn't have the same implications that gold does for the Basel III regulations. But when you see Russia and India and China and all of these countries on a mad dash for it, I think that people in the United States who are making the policy understand that as well, and that's why you're seeing so much brought into the country from London and from Switzerland.
We've got a question here from Fazdal again. What does Andy think of Mike Maloney's theory that Scott Bessent will revalue gold to $10,000 by the end of summer?
Well, I liked his. I gave him credit for it. I talked about it. His video was very cool. I think it's a little aggressive to say that by the end of summer. But he talked about backing M1 with gold, and the numbers he used was 2,365,000,000,000 divided by 261 million ounces. You get $9,044. That is what gold would be today if we backed M1, which is the Federal Reserve notes in circulation. That's the way it was prior to 33. When the dollar was backed by gold, it was M1 notes in circulation, and M2 is credit. It's 92% credit according to Mike, and it's all the numbers that you see in your bank account. That's just credit. They don't have it at the bank. If you had $5 million in your bank account and went there and demanded it, well, you'd be lucky to get 2% of that, which is interesting. By the way, just noticed a story today. Spain has introduced strict new rules on cash withdrawals. Withdrawals over 3,000 euro require advance notification to the tax agency. Over 100,000, you need 72 hours notice. So, but getting cash is harder and harder. But anyways, that was a little side digression. But when you talk about Mike's point, he would be talking about fully backing the currency in circulation with gold and making it redeemable. It's aggressive. He said, well, 9,044, they would want some wiggle room, so they'll put it at 10. It's a take that is well thought out and articulate, and I think it's aggressive. I don't think it will happen, but I liked it anyway enough to talk about it last week and give him credit. Thought it was a cool presentation he did.
Another question here from Pop and Puff, who says, Andy, if one fell on hard times and had to sell metals, which metal would you sell now, gold or silver?
I would sell gold. I mean, it depends on your situation, but look, there aren't very many opportunities where you can get an asset that has this kind of upside potential with such muted downside potential that is being accumulated by, the biggest money in the world. So yeah, I think that if it were me, I would probably sell gold. In fact, I know I would. But to me, silver is something that has been frustrating, but you can't run away from mathematics. You can't run away from that kind of logic. The old saying I keep saying, the market can and will stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. The people that have been playing this game with the futures market are very powerful. You're talking the biggest banks in the world, probably by direction of the federal government, or the military industrial complex. And again, that chart, what's his name? That Ed Steer, you saw that
Yeah,
chart that Ed
yeah,
Steer
yeah.
showed on your site from what's that guy's name that makes the charts? Charts are us. What's his name?
I'm not sure I can bring up Ed Steer's chart though.
Yeah, that's there's a guy that makes all of those charts. I forgot. I can't believe I can't think of his name. I've talked to him a
Here, I'll
bunch.
share Ed Steer's chart just for the heck of it, since you're talking about it anyway. Hold on. Here you go. There you go.
Right. So gold charts are us. Yeah. So, the red line would be the four biggest commercial banks, and the green line, the eight largest. So the four is inside of that
Hmm.
green. But why would you have silver, this tiny little market, having the largest concentrated short position? I mean, and that's concentration. Look at crude oil, and you see where oil is right now. I mean,
It's
oil went negative.
way over on the left-hand side. Yeah, he
Yeah.
said gold. You look at the gold, platinum, silver, and palladium have been nailed to the right-hand side of this chart. In other words, the most days of global production short by concentrated bullion banks
Right.
on the COMEX market.
And I think you have to ask yourself why. Why the hell would they do that? At the same time, China, the second largest producer in the world, is flying all around the world buying doré and concentrate. Russia makes a public announcement that they're adding it to their stockpile. India's bought 900 million ounces in the last 5 years. And of course, this is something that's not stopping. And now the United States is importing it. But why would you have eight banks with that kind of a short position? There's something, that's very strategic about it. But that works when you don't have much of, these much of the world standing for delivery. And you do now. So that's kind of why I think you're seeing the volatility. That's why you're seeing huge deliveries. That's why you're seeing massive imports because this is getting real. You don't want to be on the wrong side of a failure to deliver one of these large banks. I guess we'll have to see. But if it were me, I'd sell gold for that reason.
Related question. Well, actually, this is a comment. Thomas Toops said, I recently sold some gold to buy silver. We talked about this, Andy, you and I, about a month ago, and suggested that people might want to consider that with the gold silver ratio at that time greater than 100. You were pointing out that even with the bid ask spread and some minor commission spread, there's still, or the premium spread, there's still 85 to 87 to 1 you can achieve on a physical basis. Now that with the drop in gold today, that ratio is down slightly under 100 to 1. But still, go ahead and say whatever you want about that potential of if people might want to consider swapping gold for silver. I think last week, I think you said it'd rather see people just acquire silver outright and not have to give up their gold to do so. But if that's the only way they can do it, it's something
I
to
mean, it's you could argue it's a generational trade. I mean, it's once in a generation trade, and I I hope people take me seriously on that. I mean, there are very few things I've ever seen where I can say to you, well, if all we do is hit 150-year averages, you'll double your money, and you know that's something that you don't see very often. I don't know. I would simply say to you, it's as good of a trade as you will ever see in terms of risk versus reward, especially if it's in an IRA, because if it's in an IRA, you're not going to have any tax issues or shipping issues. Um, that would be the way to do it. But yeah, I mean, logic would say absolutely do it. And if all that we see, goes back to 42, 45 to 1, it's a double. It's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1. So, you see it go to 30 to 1, which I think is very possible. You're tripling your gold almost.
folks, if you're interested in executing or at least exploring a possible gold for silver swap, just email us at Liberty and Finance, all one word, all spelled out, Liberty and Finance at protonmail.com. That's protonmail.com. And just put gold to silver swap as the title of your email. Make sure you just include your name and your phone number in there. We'll be happy to talk it through with you, see if you think it's right for you. Felix the Cat 69 says, "Can you guys go over the new CFTC reporting requirements for precious metal sales to dealers reporting on the Form 1099-B?"
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And it looks, I was just reading it today. Now we have adopted that to a degree already, but it's even gotten a little further. Basically, it looks like just about anything that you would sell will not trigger dealer reporting unless it can settle a COMEX contract. And it was either 3 kilo bars or a 100-ounce gold bar. We used to have to, if we implement, we haven't done it on the 1-ounce gold bars yet, and I believe we should. We did stop reporting. Well, let me back up. We have always been under the assumption, and it's been that way forever, that in gold, if you sell more than 24 Krugerrands or Maple Leafs or more than 24 ounces worth of Mexican 50 pesos, because they're 1.2 ounce in one transaction, we're supposed to do a 1099. Or gold bars of any size greater than a kilo. That would trigger reporting. Now, the new COMEX rules, basically, the way that I read it, said that if it can't settle a contract, it's not reportable. That would mean no longer report Krugerrands, no longer report Maple Leafs, no longer report 50 pesos, and no longer report 1-ounce gold bars if you're selling them back in excess of those ounce limits. The only thing that would trigger it on gold would be 3 kilo bars in one transaction or one 100-ounce gold bar. On silver, we always used to have to do bars or rounds at 1,000 ounces or more, or pre-65 constitutional silver at 1,000 face. When you get to the $1,000 face value mark, you have to report it in one transaction. Now, again, we've already taken out, because of this rule, we don't require it on junk silver anymore, nor do we require it on silver rounds anymore. You can settle a contract with 10-ounce, 100-ounce, kilo, or 1,000 ounce technically. So
Silver bars. Hmm.
yes. So in essence, what it really does is it frees up the gold reporting on just about every level. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to do it, right? Just because we're not going to do a 1099 on your behalf doesn't mean you're not required to do it. Just means that it's the honor system. So be that as it may, you should know what the law is, and we'll show you where the line is. We'll show you how to look over it. If you step over it, that's your choice. We're not going to do the reporting, and most everything you're selling, it looks like, moving forward.
So, folks, if you want clarification on the 1099B reporting rules, you can write us at or email us at Liberty and Finance, all one word, all spelled out, Liberty and Finance at protonmail.com, and just put the word 1099 in the title. Make sure you include your name and your phone number.
I
We'll
mean,
get.
it's a big deal as far as I'm concerned. It's a massive pain in the butt as a dealer to have to do those 1099s, and um, it's good for we live in a world of decreasing privacy. If we can have more privacy, that's great. But it doesn't eliminate your role as the taxpayer, because anytime you make a profit, Uncle wants his cut.
That's an important distinction. People have been told by some dealers these certain classes of coins are non-reportable. People say that sometimes about American Eagles or different coins. They'll say, no, these are non-reportable. I was told these are non-reportable. The distinction there is very critical. That's what you just said. There's a difference between dealer mandated reporting. That's reporting that dealers have to do when they buy back certain quantities of certain materials. That's what Andy's been talking about this whole time. Nothing alleviates the legal burden under our current rules of reporting anything you sell for a higher nominal price than you bought it for. It doesn't matter if you sell something at a garage sale for a higher price than you bought it for. Legally, you're supposed to report that as a gain.
Then again,
It's
this may sound bad, and I don't mean it to sound bad, but I mean it sincerely. Like if I was sitting at a bar with everyone here having a drink and I were being completely candid, I would say there are more full of crap companies in this industry than there are good ones. And a lot of these companies um, spew half truths, myths, truths, but a half truth is as bad as a lie in many respects when you're talking about an ounce of gold being over $3,000. Like there are companies that will try and tell you that a British sovereign is collectible and not reportable. Um, well, not reportable isn't the right word. They'll tell you that it's collectible because it's pre-33 and safe from confiscation, is what I'm trying to say. But the law says pre-33 US mandated, or US made. So if you're buying numismatic coins, there are companies that will try and sell you British sovereigns and Swiss 20 francs, which are just a few bucks over melt value at huge premiums, and they say it's a collectible. That's a half truth. Yeah, pre 33, but no, because it's not US made. It is not safe from confiscation in theory. Or something like that. Yeah, I was told American Eagles, you don't have to report. No, the dealer doesn't need to report. You do. There are lots of half truths like that. Or used to talk about QSIP numbers or these modern minted numismatic. All this stuff is just a bunch of nonsense. So I'm glad you brought that up. And that's why you deal with the 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 companies that have great reputation. And they're easy to find. Just stay away from the ones that are IRA centric. That's the biggest thing of all. They're the ones that are causing the most trouble in this industry. The ones that you go to their website and they're all IRA. Those are the ones that are really, as far as I'm concerned, harming the credibility of this industry.
Yeah, fair. Not to beat a dead horse, but we've been continuing to get corroborations from clients calling us and from even people who I've interviewed on our channel who said, you were right about these IRA scams. And then somebody actually sent me a link to a video that was done about a year ago from an insider blowing the whistle, a whistleblower, on these predatory gold and silver dealers. It's bad enough that most of our viewers feel like black sheeps in their family for being the only one who's been talking about or thinking about protecting their financial futures for their family into hard assets for the past, years. It's hard enough to be in that role in your family or your circle of friends. But then when you have people that finally go, okay, I guess I'll put my foot in the water, I'll go that direction, and then they go whole hog and they sell, they swap their entire nest egg, their entire life savings into one of these swindling companies that overcharges them, upsells them, oversells them, and in 1 hour can take half of their nest egg by sticking them with stuff that's absolutely overpriced, whether it's proofs or collectibles or whatever. So I just feel like it's our duty because I keep hearing this every week from both clients and guests just to rattle off just a few telltale signs that you should run away from a predatory dealer. The first one is almost the most obvious, and that's, and Andy, chime in anytime you want. Andy already said, if it's a company that specializes only or predominantly in IRAs, that's a cautionary, that's at least a yellow flag. Maybe not a red flag, but a yellow flag, because the reason they're doing that is twofold. One, they deal with elderly people whom, frankly, they could take advantage of more easily. And secondly, they're dealing with people who are making big decisions based on a lifetime of savings rather than just, well, this is what I scraped together from the last 2 weeks' paycheck or whatever. Number two, those ads you see mostly on television or sometimes on glossy brochures, long, expensive, glossy, smooth, slow motion ads with highly paid celebrity spokespeople, retired politicians, retired sports stars, retired Hollywood or television actors, retired members from the U.S. Mint or other official sounding places. You got to be asking yourself, how can they afford such expensive advertising? There's no such thing as a free lunch, and they're not getting those ads for free. That money is coming from somewhere. You bet it's coming from their overcharging their clients. And the next would be if you talk to these people and they say, you got to make a decision now, you got to move, this is fast, you got to do, slow down, don't get rushed. Another one is if they talk to you about you got to buy what the rich people are buying, not just this ordinary stuff, but special stuff. You need proofs, you need proof sets, you need collectible stuff that's beyond the reach of government because it's guaranteed to be not confiscatable if it's pre-33 or collectible and it's for special mints and special years and special prices, you bet. So, and Andy keeps telling you, if they're trying to offer you something, you do a quick internet search on it and you can't find that thing at half a, you should be seeing prices all over from a dozen or more legitimate dealers for that same thing and be able to shop around and compare prices. If you can't find it easily like that and easily compare prices, there's a reason why it's hard to find because they don't want you to compare the prices to know that you're being overcharged. Okay, there's about a half a dozen different examples of yellow or red flags to really cause you to take a pause and take a moment, take a breath, and not rush forward and get
It's
pushed in through
huge,
something.
done again. And since I started going down this road, um, the things I've seen are shocking. My friend Kyle Seraphan, who's the FBI whistleblower, he's an amazing guy. He just interviewed the guy you're talking about. The one that you talk about, we're talking about is a year old. Well, that guy was just interviewed on Kyle's show. This Kyle's a guy that stood in front of Congress and blew the whistle on the FBI during the Biden administration. He's a fearless guy. He just had an hour-long interview with this guy. I think everyone should check it out. You'll hear he mentions company names that I won't do. I want to have him on my show, but I won't do it because it'll appear to the world that it's self-serving, and it's hard to say that it's not when it's coming from a gold company. But I'll tell you the things that I've seen. I mean, it would blow your mind, and if it were your parents or your grandparents, I think it would hit home. But everyone should go check out Kyle Seraphan's YouTube channel and watch that video.
All right, we got another question here from Salvatore Caroprisi, who says, been in physical metals for 10 years, ready to build some positions in mining stocks that are currently producing. Can you add insight on the miners or suggest any names? You go ahead and if you've got anything to add, I was just going to suggest they want to consider the Rule Symposium on Natural Resource Investing. Even if you even type in Rule Symposium on Natural Resource Investing 2025, it'll pop up to the website and you'll see the list of companies that Rick Rule has hand-picked to be attendees and exhibitors at that conference. Miles Franklin is one of the dealers that he's handpicked, and he only picks ones that he has imminent trust in and has done his due diligence on. It doesn't mean, he says, sadly, it means not everything that he picks goes up, but he says he has done extensive due diligence, more than most any investors typically do. So if you want to check that out. The link, if you want to register for the conference, either in person or remotely, is in the description of the interviews that Rick has done on our channel most recently. You can find those on YouTube, Liberty and Finance, and under search for Rick Rule. But Andy, any other answers you might bring to that question of can you add insight on the miners, just in general? Do you believe that the miners are set to outperform? And any names that come to mind that you would want to share?
Yeah, I think they are. Their all-in sustaining cost is as low as it's ever been with gold high and oil cheap. They're in essence, they're printing money. And Rick is one of the most impressive people I've ever met in my career. And I'm fortunate to call him a friend and worked with him very closely for 2 decades. Um, I've never met anyone that is as well informed and also connected. In that industry, it's as much what you know as who you know. He would tell you to choose people or to choose companies that have staff that has been serially successful is the word he uses or the phrase he uses. Um, and no one is in a better position to put you into good companies than Rick is. For me, I would avoid the juniors and I would avoid the exploration. These are the ones that give you delusions of grandeur, and I would stick with the majors and the streaming royalty companies. Like Newmont, like Franco Nevada, Royal Gold, Silver Wheaton, Pan American Silver, Hecla, First Majestic. I mean, these are all great companies that when the funds transfer even just a very small portion of their money into the mining shares, which they haven't. They've been largely ignored. And to see mining shares priced where they are, where gold and silver are where they are, it's crazy to me. So yeah, I think that you should. And to me, you envision your finances as a pyramid, the base of your pyramid, 60, 70% should be things like paid for real estate, farmland, um, gold and silver. You could say cash, even though it's a losing proposition, it should be in the base of your pyramid. The middle portion, maybe 20%, 6-month duration treasuries paying 4.5%, utility stocks paying a dividend, the home run at top 10, 15% Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and mining shares. This is the Swiss philosophy. You can make more on the top 10 or 15% than the bottom 85%, if all goes well. But their theory is you lose every penny you put into the top 10 or 15. You don't even make a nickel, just break even on the middle portion as long as the base of your pyramid is large enough to keep you from going backwards and it's low growth. And look at gold, it's outperformed everyone's expectations for quite some time now. So, yeah, I think you should just don't invert your pyramid, and be judicious as to which stocks that you choose, and it would not hurt at all to come to Rick's conference, and say hello, and like you said, he does handpick all of the companies that are there for a reason. And he also does something that always amazed me. Now, I don't know if he does this anymore. Maybe he does. Um, I should have asked him. I just did an interview with him the other day for that show. He interviewed me, and he used to, if you mailed in like your mining share portfolio, he would grade it for you or
Yeah, he still does that. Yeah, if you just go to ruleclassroom.com and there's a place you can just click a button and enter in the ticker symbols and names of your stocks that are in your natural resource portfolio. That's the only category, natural resource, which includes all mining stocks. And he'll send you back a report card and a grade on what he thinks of each of those companies.
Yeah, just stay away from the juniors and the explorations. Just focus on the majors. You could get a 2 or 3x return easily on those because they've been largely ignored. They're massively undervalued and represent such a small. I think if you took every mining share on the planet, it has a smaller capitalization than major companies like Coca-Cola or Microsoft, or I mean, all of them combined. And so, yeah, the potential is really quite strong, but they are risky, and that cuts both ways, upside and downside. So just be careful.
I just put a link in the live chat, guys. It makes it easier for you. Sorry, I was making it hard before. Easy way. The link I just put in the live chat. If you want to just check out the list of companies that Rick is inviting, hand-picked, hand-selected, curated for his upcoming Rule Symposium, I just put a link in the chat there. And you don't have to attend, you can take a look at the list without attending the conference. But if you do follow that link and you sign up for the conference, it'll be helping our channel as well. Totally up to you. And let's see. Robert M. Field says, still don't know how to spend gold or silver.
How
What
do
do
you
you
spend a
say when
stock
somebody
or a
says that?
bond? I think, probably don't want to have to spend gold or silver, but like here in Florida, they just more or less it went through both House and Senate, I guess it is here. I don't know if that's the right way of saying it. It went through both parts of the legislature. Let's put it to you that way, and it passed. And DeSantis said he'd sign it, sweeping um, legislation, maybe the broadest of all the states where gold and silver will be legal tender in the state of Florida. You can pay your property taxes with it. And it says in there that coins like the American Eagle will be legal tender. Now, you cannot walk into the Publix grocery store and demand that they take it, but if indeed they offered a program saying we'll take your gold and silver coins for groceries, well, you can do that now. And that goes along with other states like Oklahoma and Missouri and Texas and Utah and all of these states that are actually doing legal tender laws. It's like they're moving towards something like Glint, which Miles Franken is representative of in the United States, the only one in the United States, and that is a digital gold program. All of the states seem to be moving in that direction, some sort of a digital back gold payment system like Glint. Um, but they all say you can use gold and silver coins. Now, I know I was 10 years old in 1980, but my dad tells me the story all the time that the gas stations, there were ads in the local Star Tribune newspaper back then during the oil embargo and the high inflation and $50 silver was on its way up, that they would take a silver dime for a gallon of gas. So, we don't want to get to a barter position, but it now appears that you have enough drive, push towards, you know, letting these states' constituents have options other than the Federal Reserve notes, which have been destroyed in value. They're losing value every single day, and it gives these people in these states, myself included, now in Florida, the ability to, I guess, to a limited capacity right now. Maybe it expands much greater, but there's a place that wants to take gold and silver, and you have it. It's legal now here in the state of Florida, or as soon as DeSantis signs it into law. But it's passed both Republican and I don't even know how you say it at the state level, but both sides of the I guess it would be the same thing as the House and the Senate, but on a legislature basis here in the state.
I'm gonna get back to some more viewers' questions that I've got picked out. I just want to share the specials because some people are having to bow out tonight, so I'm going to share this picture of the specials. It's actually a list of them, but that's what I can do quickly here. So can you read that, or is that too small? Do I have to zoom that in?
So these coins, the Royal Mint 10-ounce coins are really, really cool.
That I have a picture of. Let me get a picture up of those
And
ones
if
if
you
you want.
go and try and find them online, we are way cheaper than everyone else on those. And we bought as many as we could. I think they're all like 24 and 25s, I want to say. But 10-ounce Royal Arms, Little John, and Merlin. And, they're
I'm
like
gonna
the
share
size of a hockey puck.
here you
Um,
go. Right
299 over, I think that was.
there you
Yeah.
go.
They're
Yep,
really,
299
really,
over
really,
spot per
really
ounce.
cool coins. And there's nothing more impressive, I think, like for a gift, graduation gift with kids graduating high school and college around now. You're looking for a good gift. These are wicked. I mean, it's expensive. It's a $350 gift, but your niece or your nephew or your kids graduating college, that's a nice gift. And it's a nice way to stack too. And the 10-ounce coins are striking. Whenever I show someone a 10-ounce coin, usually the kookaburras, people just go nuts over them. So I love these, and especially at that price, it's a really, really good price of 299 over spot. Way
I'll go
cheaper
back.
than you'll find them anywhere else.
Okay.
Backdate gold maple leaf, 69.99 over spot. With the tariffs, 1 ounce gold bars are kind of hard to get right now. And it's weird. I didn't think gold was going to be terrible. Well, it's not. I don't understand why that. Well, I keep hearing that from my staff, but 1 ounce Swiss bars are becoming as rare as hen's teeth, it seems. So I think at that price, you're getting that at the price of a carded Pam Swiss Veriscan bar, $70 over 69.99. Super good deal. Whenever they say backdate, that just means not 2025. They'll be in mint condition, no scuffs, no scratch, brand new condition. What does that say? Does that say 10th
Backdated
ounce
UK Platinum,
premium UK
1/10
platinum?
ounce Platinum. Yeah.
Yep, 1/10th ounce Platinum Britannia. We've had that on sale for a while now. And look, in many respects, platinum is the same story that silver is. I don't think it's as good of a buy as silver, but I think everyone should have some. So um, at $29 over melt, that's as good as you're ever going to get a 10th ounce platinum coin for. And then probably the best value of all forms of silver, but the antithesis of that 10-ounce coin, which is kind of sexy and cool, and you want to show someone it, a bag of dimes and quarters and half dollars certainly doesn't have that same appeal, but it is by far the best value in the industry right now, as far as I'm concerned.
And the last, yeah, you got that the constitutional pre 65 silver dimes and quarters dealer's choice. We we have limited availability, and it varies from time to time because, as you guys know, this they haven't made these for 60 to 100 years, depending what year they are, and so supply can be a bit spotty. And so when we get big orders in, if people can put a request if you want all dimes or all quarter or 50-50 mix, or if you even want halves, you can put in a request and we'll do our very best to meet your request based on what we have in inventory. Sometimes it causes a week or two extra delay if we have to wait for it, but you can put in a request. Otherwise, if you don't care, just say, I'm in it for the 90% silver, just give me what you got and we'll get you what we get in first. Either way works out just fine.
Yep. No, it's good. And really big orders, we can even do better. And I think the half dollars are the same price right now, or real
Yep.
close.
Yep. They were higher before, but now we can do them for the same price for the moment. And that's people keep calling me and asking me because this special has been for several weeks and that's unusual. They keep asking me, can I still get more? And I just had a big sale of them last night.
It's
Uh,
because we have a network of coin shops all around America that call us that I've kind of tried to develop over the last 35 years. And these are, folks that run decent sized businesses, but they don't hedge their position. So someone comes in to sell it, if they buy a full bag of silver from someone at 700 ounces in this volatile market, they'll try and sell it to us right away before the guy even leaves the shop. So we have sources that are all over America that know that if they get constitutional silver in, we'll buy it. That's why we continue to have it coming in all the time.
Uh, Last question, I think, as we're coming up to the top of the hour. Alan Ritter says, Andy, can you please tell the story of Elijah Johnson and Miles Franklin? You touched on it a couple weeks ago. How did it go from an interview to a career to the family being involved? And I did post the link to the video where my son Elijah and I did the reveal that we were even related, which we had our independent and parallel channels for like 8 years. Nobody knew that. He was my son and I was his dad. So I put a link to that in the live chat. If you guys scroll up, you'll find it. I'll post it again here just in case it scrolled off screen. But as far as Andy, it started with a interview. His relationship with Miles Franklin started by interviewing you, I believe.
He was 17, I think. He was homeschooled. I didn't even know who he was. One of the first interviews I ever did. And then in 2019, Maurice Jackson from Proven and Probable, one of the most stand-up human beings I've ever known in my life, um, he called me and said, you got to talk to Dunnigan and do an interview. We did. And for a while, Elijah was kind of the moderator of my YouTube channel. If you go and look at the Miles Franklin channel, you'll see a bunch of videos that he helped do in 2020. And then there was a gap until I, turned it back on basically in June this year. Um, but so last year, excuse me. But somewhere along the line, 2021, I think Elijah realized, as did you, that this was something that you guys could be very, very good at. And there are very few people that I have as representatives of my company that are not my employees, and your family is. And to me, that's the greatest compliment I can ever give you, the highest level of trust and respect. You know, when you run a business that's never had a complaint in 35 years, it's like it's the greatest achievement of my life, really, next to having children. Um, and it is like my child. I mean, I've been doing this most of my life since I was 19. Um, and so there's just a couple, you guys, Bill Holter. I have a lot of affiliates, but not people that are actual representatives. And, Bill's one of my best friends in the world, and I consider you and your family some of the most wonderful people I've ever met. And it started with that interview with Elijah. How old is Elijah now?
Knocking on 30 here. So,
Okay, so it was 13 years ago.
yeah.
And time flies, but I wouldn't change a thing. Then again, I'm honored to work with you
Well,
and
I gotta get my
Andy.
plug in there because you started Miles Franklin together with your dad back in 1990. Rick Rule and Maurice also were the ones who pushed me. You got to go talk to Andy. You got to go talk to Andy. So they were both working to kind of get us to talk to each other, and it was that led me into becoming a Miles Franklin broker.
No,
And
I'm glad you did, and I wouldn't change a thing. And I'll give Rick a hug when I see him, and Maurice as well.
well,
Been a
and then
wonderful
it was you who
experience.
suggested the weekly market update, and that's become a favorite among all of our viewers. So everybody who's out there right now, we've had 6,796 views just so far here. It's currently 1,387 viewers out there. It's you who are making this possible, everyone.
I
And it was Andy's brainchild to say, let's do a weekly market update, and this has become the favorite thing on our channel.
It blows me
We're delighted for
away when I look at all the videos we've done, and I would say this week it's kind of a hard week. Like there are weeks where a year's worth of stuff happens in a week, and then there are weeks like this where if it weren't for the pullback we saw, there would be very little to talk about. And it's always interesting. Some days I don't have much to talk about, and we end up having some of our best conversations. So, I enjoy them. I look forward to them. I love the live streams, and I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't change a thing. And
the thing that makes it easy for me was such a blessing up front. You know, when you get into a business relationship or whatever, you always wonder, well, how long will I have to be in this until I'm really sure that I landed in the right place? So the first conference that we went to together out in Boca Raton, I see all these people come up who've been working with you and your dad for a generation, and they imminently and implicitly trust you. And I go, okay, I know I've landed in the right place because here I've got decades of testimony on the part of all these salt of the earth moms and pops who are coming up here. And some of these are very sophisticated investors too. And Rick, having used you exclusively for years at his conferences as the bullion dealer of choice there, that's where I got to know that people who've known you and your dad a long time learn to trust you. And so it kind of took me right to the finish line very quickly. And
well,
that's
it's just it's hard to even hear that stuff, because I'm still a 19-year-old kid in my mind. But that's the
sorry, buddy.
yeah, well, I am my body when I wake up in the morning, not so much, but that's the key to running a business. And it's really the key to everything. It's relationships. And it's what has built my business. And that's why one of the reasons why I haven't ever gone to that online portfolio or that online way of running a business. There's a lot to be said for relationships and being able to count on someone being there when you need them. And sometimes it's not as convenient, but there are other times where you never realize how important a relationship is until there's a problem or an issue that needs to be addressed.
Well, we're grateful for your presence here. Everyone, thank you all for being here every night. Sometimes you're having to be patient with us if we shift around the night like we did this time, or if we're starting to have technical difficulties, you still hang with us. And frankly, I'm impressed with the level of support that everyone gives each other in the chat because this is a real community that's continued to grow and continued to support each other along the way. And we've had a lot of corroboration. We've had a lot of confirmation in the last year that we've been in the right place. And that's going to, I believe, continue. So thank you for being here. And Andy, as always, thanks you for joining us. And every single person who was here tonight, there was a reason we were all here. Let's take some nugget, haha, no pun intended, from this conversation and try to share it with somebody this week. There's going to be a situation where we can help somebody to put two connections together, make a light bulb go on, help somebody see something that may help them, and help families, help our friends, neighbors, coworkers, etc. Andy, as always, thanks for joining us on Liberty and
Thank you,
Finance.
Don. Again, we'll see you next week, buddy. You stay well. Bye, everybody.
Okay, stream finished.